Okay, good morning everyone, and Hazak Baruch. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Thursday morning as we are studying together Perashat Pinhas. Pinhas, of course, the Perashat opens up with this heroic act of his where he saves the Jewish people from the plague that was already killing tens of thousands of people. Altogether 24,000 died just from the Magefa, from the plague, because of the immorality that was going on with the Jewish people, with the Jewish men and the women of Moab and Midian. So Pinhas comes and he saves the day. But I would like today to continue in the middle of our parasha where we left off after yesterday's class. Yesterday we spoke about the daughters of Tzelofhad who wanted inheritance. Their father died without any boys and they weren't sure how to proceed, and they went to Moshe, and Moshe said, I have to ask God. And God said, indeed, if there are no boys, then the girls do inherit. They are next in line. If there are no girls, then it goes to the uncles. If there's no, right, it just keeps going back and back and back. Okay, very nice. So that is our parasha, and that is where we last left off with the daughters of Tzelofhad asking for inheritance. And of course, right after this, let's fast forward over here to chapter 27, right after where Moshe gives over these laws of inheritance. Vaydaber Moshe el Adonai lemor. Now Moshe comes and says, God, Yifkod Adonai Elohei Aruchot lechol basar ish al haida. Please, God, can you appoint a good leader for the Jewish people? So here Moshe is literally last year of his life. He's about to, move on into the next world. And he says, God, can you please appoint a leader for the Jewish people? Asher yetzeh lifnehem, someone that's going to go out in front of them. Asher yavo lifnehem, going to come back in front of them. Asher yotzihem, take them out, bring them in. V'lo tihi adat Hashem katzon asher en lahem ro'eh. Let the Jewish people not be like a sheep without a shepherd. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, and God says back to Moshe, Kach lecha et Yehoshua ben Nun. Of course, Moshe, it's a good request. Take for yourself Joshua, your student. Asher ruach bo, he has ruach, he has spirit. V'samachta yedecha alav, put your hands on him. He'amata oto lifnei Elazar HaKohen, let him be in front of Elazar the Kohen Gadol, and in front of the entire assembly, and appoint him in front of them, so that when you move on, there will be no confusion. A lot of times, unfortunately today, when a rabbi passes away, there's a lot of mahloket that goes on about who should be the next leader. Especially by the Hasidim, when a Rabbi, when an Admor passes away and he doesn't leave clear instruction. So a lot of times split happens because there's a little bit of lack of clarity of who should be the one to continue the legacy. So God says to Moshe, I want you to be very clear who's going to take over after you. Make sure you publicly announce Yehoshua to be the leader in front of everyone. And the episode Perasha continues, etc., etc. Now, what we need to understand is, why is this episode here? Moshe is not about to die like now. He still has the whole book of Devarim, of Deuteronomy, where he's going to tell the people all the laws. So he has a little bit of time. We could technically ask, Moshe, what's the rush? Why ask over here for the future leader of the Jewish people? And I'd like to share with you what the answer of the Midrash is. The Midrash asks this question. And I'll read to you and I'll translate. Why is Moshe asking now for continuation, for a leader? Ahar Seder Nahalat. After the episode of the legacy, the inheritance of Benot Tzelofhad, of the daughters of Tzelofhad. Ela, rather, Kevan sheyarshu Benot Tzelofhad avihen. Once Moshe saw the answer to yesterday's question of what should be with a man who has no sons, the answer is it goes to the daughters, etc. Amar Moshe starts thinking to himself, Harei hasha'a she'edba ba'tzorchi. Now, this is the right time for me to ask about my heirs. Tzelofhad, the guy is dead. He figured out his legacy. He has children that are going to take over. I would like to also secure my children's inheritance. Im habanot yorshot badin, yorshot, if the daughters inherit, badinu, obviously, sheyirshu banai et kevodi. If the daughters of a Tzalofchad inherit their father, then obviously my sons should be the leaders after me. You see, when Moshe says, God, can you appoint a leader? He's not just asking for a leader, a little bit. There's a tacit suggestion. Moshe is saying, God, could you maybe appoint a leader? The same way Tzalofchad's daughters inherited him, maybe the leaders would be my own sons who will inherit after me the position to lead the Jewish people. You know, Moshe is basically standing there, God, so let's appoint a leader. And he's holding his two boys around him. So God, who's the next leader? Wink, wink. And Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God said, I'm sorry, Moshe. No can do. Banecha yashvu lahem velo asku b'Torah. Your son sat there but didn't learn. Yoshua harbe sharatcha veharbe halak lecha kavod. Joshua was by your side. He was your shadow. He learned from you. He followed you. Hu haya mashkiu ma'ariv. He would wake up early and late in the Beit Midrash. He would set up the synagogue for learning, prepare the Beit Midrash, the study hall. Because he served you with all of his might. And therefore God's response to Moshe, when Moshe says, so who's the next leader? God says, Yehoshua. The Midrash is telling us that when God says Joshua, we would usually think, oh, Moshe is probably so proud. Moshe is probably so happy. Joshua gets to continue. He carries on the legacy. But the Midrash is telling us a little bit, there was some pain in that answer from Moshe. The fact that it's Joshua means that it's not his sons. And that's difficult news to hear. Because Moshe would want, like any father, that his kids should take over after him. And now Moshe has to anoint Yoshua, and God says, put your hands on him, do it publicly, do it with full happiness, even though he's not your son. It's hard for a father to give over the business to his to some regular guy, as loyal as the kid may be. At the end of the day, it's not his son, not his biological son. There's nothing that makes a father happier than being able to have his son succeed after him. And so Moshe's kids don't succeed after him. They don't take over the leadership position. Now we must ask a question over here that's asked by the Nahalat Eliezer, Rav Eliezer Kahan, and he says, I don't understand. If Moshe's sons aren't worthy, how dare Moshe even think of suggesting that they be the leaders? Could you imagine talking about a selfless person like Moshe, humble, his whole life was all about the people. He gave up everything for them. Only thing he wants is for their benefit, for their best interest in mind. He was willing to die literally by the Egel. God, wipe me out, take me instead. Only thing Moshe wants is the Jewish people's continuity, their best interest in mind, at heart. Only thing he cares about is them. And now when it's time to appoint a leader, you think Moshe is going to suggest his children who aren't worthy? You know, imagine a rabbi of a synagogue, and it's time for him to move on, to retire, and the board asks him, so Rabbi, who should we put? And he has a son who's on drugs, who's off the derech, like we say, off the D-O-T-D, and he's uninspired, and the father says, you know who would make a great rabbi? My son. The kid's got tattoos, the kid's got earrings, who knows what he has? And the father says, yeah, I want you to pick my son. What would you say about this rabbi? What, really, Rabbi? Do you care about us or you care about your family legacy? How is it possible, how is it fathomable that Moshe would even suggest his own kids? Impossible. Answers Rav Kahan, it must be, it has to be, that Moshe's kids were very worthy to be the future leaders. If Moshe is suggesting it, it has to be that it was actually they were proper candidates. Moshe wouldn't suggest it if they weren't in the running. It has to be that they were fully knowledgeable in Torah and in character and everything. But now the question remains, if that's the case and they were worthy, so then why did God decline? What did Yehoshua have that they didn't? And so answers Rav Kahana, I'm sure there's many answers that you could give, there's many different directions that you could take this. But his answer, he says, he goes back to the famous line that we quote all the time, and that is that in spirituality, my friends, when it comes to Torah at least, we don't base success on results. We know that success in Judaism comes down not to results, but to effort. It's not about how much you accomplish, it's about how hard you tried. So as an example, by the siyum, we say, Anu amelim vehem amelim. We work hard and they work hard. We work hard and get rewarded. They work hard and they don't get rewarded. Right? And what does that mean? They work hard and they don't get rewarded? It's not true. The goyim get rewarded. Look at all the wealthy non-Jews that get rewarded for working hard. The answer is, they don't get rewarded really per se for working hard. They get rewarded because of the results, because of the accomplishments. That's why they get rewarded. You have a businessman, take a businessman for an example. He goes out and he works hard and he's calling and figuring out conversations and emails and whining and dining the customer. And at the end of the day, the customer doesn't bite. He didn't hook him. He couldn't make the sale. He couldn't make the be'ah, like we say in Arabic. What happens? Zero commission, zero money. You get nothing. You have another salesman, one lucky phone call, made $1 million sale. He's getting the flus, he's getting the paycheck. Because in this world that we live in, my friends, success is based on results. It's a result-oriented game. It's a result business. You see results, then you're good. Not so when it comes to spirituality. Hashem doesn't care so much about results. Hashem cares more about the efforts. So as an example, if one kid finished studying the entire page in a half hour, and another kid in the yeshiva, it took him 4 hours. The first kid accomplished what the other kid accomplished in an eighth of the time. He did it much faster. You're checking, right? A half hour at one, right? Okay, fine. So he did it much faster. But, says the Chafetz Chaim, in God's eyes, the second kid is going to get rewarded for 4 hours of learning. You know, in this world, if you're able to finish building a house in 1 year, and another contractor promises you 3 months, guess what? You're going to hire the 3-month contractor. Of course, assuming it's the same quality. But if it's the same quality, faster is better. Not in Judaism. We don't care about faster. We care about how hard you tried. So as an example, imagine 2 people inherited from their father inheritance. One son inherits $1,000. The other son inherits $10,000. Or adjust the numbers if they're too low for you. One son inherits 100,000. The other son inherits 1 million. Okay? 10 million, 100, whatever you want. And the second son who got more, he takes his million and he starts losing and losing and losing, and he winds up with 200,000. The first son had 100,000. The second son started with 1 million, now has 200,000. Which son has more? Second son has more, technically, but which son's the bigger failure? The second son. You were given more. So what if you have more? You ended up messing it up. It's a great joke. How does a wife turn her husband into a millionaire? You know this one? How does a lady make her husband a millionaire? Marry him when he's a billionaire. Okay? So here's a guy with $1 million and he loses, he goes down to 200. But he has more, you'll say, than the first guy. It's true, he has more, but that's not what matters. What matters is, what are you doing with what you were given? So are we maximizing our time? Are we maximizing our potential? Yeah, Moshe's two sons, my friends, they achieved very, very lofty things. They were very big in learned and kindness, maybe, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, God says to Moshe, but Yehoshua tried harder. And if he tried harder, that's all I care about. Isn't that a result-based business? This is about effort-based. And so Moshe, your two sons are great, but I guess you could say they were given more. They should have achieved much more than they did. So although they're up here, they could have been even higher, and they failed. And therefore I choose Joshua. Now we understand why Moshe wanted really his kids, because they were, to man's eyes, we only see results, right? You don't know how hard someone tries or how much they're capable of. So to the naked eye, to me and you, it looks like the sons of Moshe are equally knowledgeable. And that's what it looked like when you give a test. All you see is the mark on top, 90, 100. You don't know how hard each kid tried studying the night before. You have no idea. Yehoshua's two sons, no one knows, did they try hard, did they not try hard? All they saw was the test grade. The result was they got 100. Yehoshua got maybe a 95. So Moshe is right in thinking that his sons who got 100 should be the leaders. But God says back, not so. Because at the end of the day, Yehoshua sharatcha bechol kocho. Those are the words. Yehoshua was the one who tried harder. When you try harder, you're the one that deserves the trophy. This is what Rav Eliezer Kahan says. Something very powerful. I think something that we could all really, we sometimes look around and we see people that give less than us, or they do less than us, and we feel very happy and very satisfied. Say, look, I'm giving 100,000. They're only giving 5,000. They're only giving 10,000. And we feel happy about what we're doing and good about ourselves. We should. But we also have to be very careful not to base our success on the results of other people around us. Maybe the people that are around us are giving less because they have less. I should ask myself, not am I doing better than him, but am I doing as much as I can be doing myself for me, vis-a-vis myself? That's what I have to ask myself. Am I learning the most that I can? Not am I learning more than him. Not am I more religious than her. Not am I covering more than that person. Am I doing the best that I can for myself? Moshe's sons were maybe better than other people, but they weren't the best that they could be. Famous story of Rav Zusha on his deathbed. Rav Zusha Me'anapoli on his deathbed. His two sons, his students, were around him, and they saw the Rebbe very nervous. They said, Rabbi, what are you worried about? In Shamayim, we have no doubt you're going to be straight into heaven. And Rav Zusha said, I'm not worried that Hashem is going to say, no, Rav Zusha, how come you didn't write Chidushim like the Rambam? I'm going to say, God, I didn't have the Rambam's mind. I'm not worried that God's going to ask me, why don't you do chesed like Avraham Avinu? I'm going to say, God, I didn't have Abraham's heart. I'm worried about what will be my answer if God says, Zusha, why weren't you Zusha? Why weren't you yourself? You could have been better. Now, why weren't you him? Hashem in Shamayim is not going to compare us to other people. In Shamayim, God's going to compare us to ourselves and what we could have been, what we could have accomplished. And remembering the lesson from Yehoshua is that the ultimate success is not being better than the people around me, but it's being the best that I could be. Are we being the best that we can be? Are we being Zusha? Zusha, why weren't you Zusha? Such a powerful, powerful line. So that is the first idea from this beautiful pasuk over here of what Moshe was thinking, and what is it doing here? Why is it after the daughters of Tzelofchad? Well, We continue and we look at Moshe's language. What does Moshe say? He says, please God, appoint somebody on the people. Asher yetzeh lifnehem va'asher yavo lifnehem. Someone that's going to go out in front of them, someone's going to bring them back in front of them. And over here, we have an amazing chidush from Rav Moshe Mendel, the author of Bet Yitzchak. He quotes over here a beautiful, beautiful Gemara. This is a Gemara in a few places in the end of Sotah. It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin. And the Gemara, believe it or not, gives us certain signs. You ready for this? Okay? Gemara gives us certain signs how to know that Mashiach's coming. Are you familiar with this Gemara? Okay? The Gemara tells us, I'll tell you what to look for, and you'll know Mashiach's right around the corner. Okay? So Venmo me $50 and I'll send you the page. Okay, I'm kidding. I'll tell it to you for free right now. Okay? Gemara says, so I'm going to open it up. It's amazing. This is a Gemara written 2,000 years ago, and it's telling you prophecy. You want to know if Mashiach's coming? This is what you need to look for. So here it is. It says Sanhedrin, page 97a. Okay? Let's just find it quickly over here. Here. Tanya Rabbi Nehurai Omer. Dor sheben David ba. The generation that Ben David is going to come. Bo ne'arim yalbinu penei zekenim. It will be a generation, my friends, it's crazy, that the children, the younger, will embarrass the older. Isn't that unbelievable? Aren't we seeing that today? It used to be, you grew up, whatever village you were from, whatever town you were from, your father was your hero, your grandpa was your hero, they told you everything about life, you lived in the shadow of your mother and grandma, everything that you knew was from them, they told you everything from A to Z, they asked for something, you ran to do it, we stood up for them, we respected them, we never dared argue on them, we knew that they knew more about life than us. Everything that we need to know about life, all the answers will come from who? From mom and dad. But says the Gemara, when Mashiach comes, it's not going to be like that. There will come a day, and I'm sure 2,000 years ago people said, oh, that's impossible. But today we're seeing it. Today respect is out the door. Today nobody gives any authority. There's no more reverence for older generation. Today, the younger you are, the cooler you are, the more you know. Today, the elderly are asking the younger, could you show me how to answer this email on my iPhone? I can't find the reply button, right? Today, we live in that type of generation that the younger know more than the older, or at least they think they do. The elderly will have to stand up for the younger ones. Could you imagine? This was written, my friends. This is what it says. And another sign, I remember the day where when you were on the city bus and an elderly person walked on, you stood up. I'm not so old, excuse me. But I remember the day, just 10, 15 years ago. You do too, Joe. I remember the day that an elderly person walked, you stood up. I try to stay away from public transportation sometimes, but, just a few weeks ago, I was on the train. Let me tell you something. An elderly lady walked on, nobody flinched. Nobody flinched. They didn't even, I don't even think they noticed. They did notice, doesn't matter. They were just there, locked in. They saw her, nobody cared. I would have given her my seat, but I was, too focused on the movie no kidding. I would have given her my seat, but I was standing. I didn't have a seat. So here is a lady, walked 10 years ago, everybody would have given her the seat gladly. So times are changing very, very quickly. But let me get to the point. Why am I quoting this to you? I'm not here to embarrass our generation. Next siman, you ready? Another sign that we're at the times of Mashiach. Penei hador kipnei hakelev. the faces of the generation will be like the face of a dog. That is another sign that Mashiach's around the corner. Now, what does that mean? This one is not so easy to understand. It has to be decoded. What does it mean? Pnei hador kipnei hakelev. What does that mean exactly? The face of the generation will be the face of a dog. So allow me to share with you something beautiful that he says over here from Rabbi Salanter. He says, you know, a lot of times you go on a tour, right? Especially now in the summer, everyone's going away. You want to go on a tour, whether it's in Rome, or it's in Jerusalem, or it's in, Ghetto, or Venice, whatever tour you're going on, right? You take a tour guide, and they take you around, right? So the tour guide's in the front. Nice. He's taking you, he's walking you around. He says, there is another very similar situation. Look at this. You walk in the street sometimes, especially in Manhattan, right? Over there, there's more people to dog ratio than there is people to children ratio. Okay? A lot of dogs in the city going around. Okay. So you walk in the city, you see people with their dogs going out for walks in the mornings and the nights. And also the dog is in front of his master, in front of his owner. Right? So he says over here a very interesting observation. Imagine you have these two scenarios. One of them is a person following a tour guide, and another one is a person following his dog. To the observer, it looks like in both scenarios, the dog and the tour guide are leading. They're in front. But says Rav Salanter, if you pay attention though, you'll see that every few seconds, what does the dog do? The dog turns around to make sure that his owner is following. The dog may be in front, but he's not leading. The dog's in front, but he's following from in front. You understand? Says Rav Salanter, that's what it means. When the generation will be like a dog, it will mean that the leaders who are supposed to be like a tour guide, that a tour guide says, listen, I know the way. And if you tell a tour guide, listen, I think that's the way, tell you, listen, I've been running this for 50 years. I got what I know from the guy before me who was doing it for 80 years, who got it from him. This is the right way. The tour guide doesn't follow the people that are there, the customers. The tour guide leads. But says the Gemara, when Mashiach's going to come, the generation leaders will be like dogs. They're going to be from in front, but they're not leading. Constantly turning around, making sure the people behind them are following them. Used to be, a leader knew what was right. A father, a mother, teacher, they knew what was right. This is the right way. This is the way we had it for 3,000 years. This is a recipe for success. I know this was the right way. They were like a tour guide. They took you and they showed you the way, how to go through this world, how to succeed in life. But says the Gemara, Dor, the generation, Sheben David ba, that Mashiach's coming. The leaders will be like dogs. No longer will the leaders have a spine to be able to lead. Now, like a dog, they'll be called leaders. They'll be called father and mother and rabbi, but they're going to be leading they're going to be following really from in front. They're not going to be leading. They're going to be in front, but they're going to constantly look back and make sure the people give their approval. And what happens if they don't? What happens if the leaders, what happens if the community, if the followers are not so happy? Then a dog, if he sees the owner go a different way, the dog quickly goes the other way. And if he sees him go that way, he quickly goes that way. The generation that Mashiach comes, that's what leaders are going to look like. They're not going to really show people what needs to be done. They're not going to really lead the people. They're really just going to follow the polls. If the polls show this is what the people want, then that's what the leader will do. If they want that way, that's what we'll do. If a kid wants something, the father who should know better, the mother who should know better, but that's what the kid wants, so we'll let him have it. What could you do? What could you do? That's the generation. That's where we are. That's like a dog. A dog is on top. He's in front. He's not leading. He's following what the owner does. A real leader needs to know this is the right way. This is where you need to go. I'm not going to shove it down your throat. And maybe there's a right and smart way of how to take the people on the tour. Maybe there's the right way of how to get them there. But ultimately, a leader needs to know this is right. This is the way. This is the only way out. This is how I got it from my mother, who got it from her mother, who got it from her mother. This is the recipe for success. This is the only way. This is the right way. This is what a true leader is. And again, you don't have to be a leader of a community. We're all leaders. Whether it's over our children, we're leading our community, we're leading our friends, we're leading ourselves. We need to know this is right. But when Mashiach comes, all that's going to go out the window. And unfortunately, we're going to see, says the Gemara, that people like dogs, even though they look like they're in front, they're really going to be following. They're going to be lacking a spine. They're going to be lacking the ability to show those around them the right way. Instead, they're just going to follow from in front. So, when Moshe over here comes and says, please God, give a leader to the people. You know what Moshe says? Asher yetzeh lifnehem v'asher yavo lifnehem. God, I need someone that's going to go in front of them and come back in front of them. And his wording is very specific. Lifnehem, lifnehem. To be in front and to be in front. It's not enough to be in front. A dog is also in front, but a dog's following. Moshe says a real leader, and Moshe is talking to all of us, a real leader needs to be in front through and through, knowing what's the right way, not to get nervous or deterred if maybe there's some opposition. There's opposition, but I know what's the right thing. And maybe in the beginning they're going to make noise and it's going to be difficult and you have to fight. Okay, so fight a little bit. But ultimately I know what's the right thing. And so, when he says, Yifkod Hashem Elokeh Haruchot, he says, God, please appoint somebody who's going to be someone of spirits, who's going to go in front of them. What does God say? Kach lecha et Yehoshua. And what does God call Yehoshua? What's the title that God gives Yehoshua? Ish Asher Ruach Bo. A man with Ruach. Says Rashi, Sheyachol lahaloch keneged ruho shel kol ehad ve'ehad. Someone who's going to be able to go against the spirit of every single person. Usually that's understood as a people's thing. He's a people's person. He understands what he wants. He understands what he wants. If this guy likes basketball, he'll talk basketball. If this guy likes baseball, he'll talk baseball. But over here he says maybe it means keneged, opposing. When God created a wife, she's called an ezer kenegdo. She's helping him. How does a wife help her husband? Not by doing what he wants. Yes, honey, no problem. A wife's job is to actually sometimes be keneged. Tell her husband straight, stop it. You look like a clown. Stop acting like that. Stop doing that. Stop, talking like that. She has to sometimes oppose her husband, and that is the way that she helps her husband. A wife's job is not to follow what her husband wants. If he wants to do X, Y, and Z, then all right, just let him. And then she's like a dog. She has the face of a dog. She's just there, but doing whatever he wants. Wife's job has to be kenegdo. A husband's job has to be kenegdo the other way. To always help, to show this is not the right way. This is the right way. I know you want to do this. If you go to a nutritionist and she gives you a schedule and you say, listen, give me a pen 1 second. No. You see, no eating after 7, no such thing. We'll change that to 11, okay? 7-11. 11 p.m. is I can't eat after 11. I could eat at 8, 9, 10. I like to eat on my bed. I don't know why you wrote no bedtime snacks. I don't like that one. Bedtime, I'm watching a movie, a show, I need to eat on my bed. What is this? Only 2,000 calories? What are you talking about, 2,000? 12,000, right? Imagine you change the nutritionist's program. You're not gonna lose weight. The nutritionist tells you what to do. You don't tell her or him. You don't tell the workout trainer what he tells you what to do. If it's true with nutrition and health, it's true with fitness. It's true in life, with Torah, with spirituality. We don't tell the Torah what to do. We don't tell God. The Torah tells us. And a leader needs to know that. A leader needs to know, Vezot HaTorah. We raise the Torah up high. We quoted in the past, Vezot HaTorah Shesa Moshe. When we raise the Torah up high, you know why we raise it up high? They give a beautiful parable, mashal, to a guy who was in London, and he sees Big Ben. You ever saw Big Ben? He says, why do they put the clock so up high? I said, oh, you know why? Because once upon a time, the clock was lower. And then a guy walked by and he saw 9:44. I got 9:46. You know what he did? He moved the Big Ben 2 minutes. And the other guy came, he says, I got 9:42. We move it back. And everyone kept moving the clock according to what their watch said. So the geniuses there in London, they decided, got to put it up high. This is the time. This is the right time. And if your watch has it different, don't change Big Ben. Change your watch. Your watch is wrong. This is right. We take the Torah, we pick it up high. Vezot HaTorah Shesa Moshe. This is the right time. And if you have any problems with it, then change yourself. Change your watch. Don't touch Big Ben. So we're all guilty a little bit of this. You know, we move sometimes the Torah, where we're changing the time, changing the halacha, and the Torah is reminding us that a real leader, a real Torah is a Torah that's structured, that this is it. Of course, there's always situations. The Torah is a living Torah, and the rabbis know exactly when and where to make sure the Torah is alive. But ultimately, to remember that we must be leaders. The leaders have to lead, not follow. Parents, the Torah is leading us, not just, letting the Torah just be there as a tranquilizer. And when it works, it does. And when it doesn't, we just abandon it. You're never going to lose weight like that. You're never going to grow like that. We should be zocher always to have true leadership, to be able to follow the leaders, because ultimately, when we do, we will be the beneficiaries. We will come out successful. We'll stop over here. Have a wonderful day, everybody. God willing, we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.